WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, you know, it's obviously been a tough week.
The WNBA has just pushed the nuclear button. And if the rumors coming out of the front office are true, the league might have just signed its own death warrant. For months, the tension between the league's explosive new popularity and its old-school governance has been tightening like a noose. But nobody expected the rope to snap this suddenly. We are hearing reports that are sending shockwaves through the sports world. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert has allegedly moved to suspend Caitlin Clark following a catastrophic breakdown in negotiations regarding the new collective bargaining agreement. The accusation is stunning that Clark refused to sign a deal the league presented, a deal that many insiders are describing as a desperate attempt to cap her influence and control her earning power. If the WNBA thought this power play would force their golden goose to fall in line, they have made a miscalculation of historic proportions. The backlash hasn't just been loud, it has been deafening. Fans are canceling season tickets. Social media is calling for heads to roll. And the entire financial structure of women's basketball is suddenly teetering on the edge of a cliff. To truly understand why a suspension like this is so catastrophic, you have to peel back the layers of what actually happened in that negotiation room. This wasn't just about a paycheck. Sources indicate that the WNBA approached Clark with a team-friendly deal that was supposed to set the tone for the new CBA era, but the terms were reportedly draconian. We're talking about clauses that would grant the league excessive rights to her image, mandatory marketing appearances that would eat into her off-season, and a salary structure that barely moved the needle compared to her market value. The league was essentially asking Caitlin Clark to subsidize her own exploitation for the good of the game. When she slid that paper back across the table and refused, it wasn't just a contract dispute. It was a rejection of the entire WNBA business model that has relied on player sacrifice for decades. But Clark isn't a typical player, and treating her like one was the first mistake in a series of disasters that led us to this moment. The narrative circulating right now is that Commissioner Engelbert viewed this refusal as insubordination. In the eyes of the old guard, the league is the shield, and no player, no matter how many jerseys she sells, is bigger than the shield. The alleged suspension is being framed as a disciplinary measure, a way to humble the rookie and remind her who holds the keys to the kingdom. It is a classic corporate power move. Cut off the access, silence the voice, and wait for the employee to come crawling back. But this strategy ignores a fundamental reality of the modern sports landscape. We are living in the era of the player-empowered economy, and Caitlin Clark is the CEO of her own brand. Trying to strong-arm her with a suspension is like a local grocery store trying to ban Amazon. It doesn't hurt the giant. It only ensures the local store goes out of business. Let's look at the leverage here, because the math simply does not add up for the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is walking around with a Nike signature deal worth reported nearly $28 million over 8 years. Add in her partnerships with Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson, and Panini, and her annual off-court income is easily in the 8-figure range. Now, compare that to the WNBA maximum salary, which sits around $250,000. It is a drop in the bucket. It is lunch money. If the commissioner thinks suspending Clark's WNBA salary is going to hurt her financial standing, she is living in a fantasy world. Clark could sit on her couch for the next 5 years, never touch a basketball, and still be one of the wealthiest female athletes on the planet. The league, however, cannot say the same. They rely on the Clark economy to justify their new media rights deals, their expansion plans, and their ticket price hikes. By suspending her, they are effectively setting fire to their own bank vault. This situation becomes even more volatile when you look at the timing. The WNBPA, the players' union, has already opted out of the current collective bargaining agreement. They did this because they saw the revenue Caitlin Clark brought in. They saw the chartered flights, the sold-out arenas, and the massive TV ratings, and they decided they wanted a bigger piece of the pie. The irony here is thick enough to cut with a knife. The union is demanding more money based on Clark's success. Yet, the league is allegedly punishing Clark for trying to secure her own future. It has created a fracture in the locker rooms that is impossible to ignore. While there has been a well-documented history of jealousy and hazing from some veterans who feel Clark gets too much attention, the smart players know the truth. They know that if Clark falls, the money train stops. If the commissioner alienates the biggest draw in the history of the sport, those charter flights go back to commercial and those salary bumps disappear. But the threat to the WNBA isn't just internal, it's existential, and it has a name, unrivaled. This is the new 3-on-3 league founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafi Zakir, and it is looming over this suspension like a dark cloud. Unrivaled is offering something the WNBA has refused to give: equity. They are offering players ownership stakes and the highest average salaries in women's professional sports history. If Caitlin Clark feels disrespected by the WNBA, if she feels that the commissioner is trying to control her rather than partner with her, she has a landing spot ready and waiting. Imagine the optics of that scenario. The face of women's basketball turning her back on the WNBA to play in a startup league in Miami. It would legitimize Unrivaled overnight and relegate the WNBA to secondary status. The commissioner isn't just risking a contract dispute. She is inadvertently handing her competitors the ultimate weapon to destroy her league. We also have to talk about the fan reaction because this is where the WNBA is truly losing the plot. The fan base that Caitlin Clark brought to the league is loyal to her, not the Shield. These are not legacy WNBA fans who will stick around out of habit. These are new fans who tuned in specifically to see the logo three-pointers and the no-look passes. If you take Clark off the court, those fans don't just switch to watching another game, they turn the TV off. We saw a preview of this earlier in the season when Clark was left off the Olympic team. The outrage was palpable, and the missed marketing opportunity was calculated in the millions. A suspension is that same mistake amplified by a factor of 10. Social media is already flooded with hashtags calling for a boycott of the league and the resignation of Kathy Engelbert. The WNBA is fighting a war on two fronts, one against its star player and one against its own customers. And speaking of Kathy Engelbert, her position has never been more precarious. This alleged suspension feels like the desperate flailing of a leader who has lost control of the narrative. Throughout the season, Engelbert was criticized for being too passive. She remained silent while players like Kennedy Carter took cheap shots at Clark. She gave a disastrous interview where she compared the toxic racism directed at players to a rivalry like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, a statement that offended almost everyone and led to a public apology. Now the pendulum seems to have swung from passivity to authoritarianism by trying to crack down on Clark. Now, after letting so much slide earlier, she looks less like a commissioner and more like a bully. The owners of the WNBA teams who are finally seeing a return on their investment have to be looking at this leadership style with serious concern. If Engelbert's ego drives Clark away, she is costing these owners millions. In the world of pro sports, commissioners serve at the pleasure of the owners. And right now, Engelbert is becoming a liability. The complexities of the CBA negotiations cannot be overstated. The players want a revolution in how the league is run. They want a revenue split similar to the NBA, where players get roughly 50% of the basketball-related income. Currently, WNBA players get nowhere near that. The league has historically argued that they aren't profitable. So 50% of zero is zero. But Clark changed that math. The league is generating revenue now. Ticket sales are up 400% in some markets. Merchandise is flying off the shelves. The Caitlin Clark effect is a tangible, audit-verified economic boom. For the league to turn around and offer her a deal that limits her upside is not just greedy, it's bad business. It suggests that the league executives still see the WNBA as a charity case rather than a booming business, and they're trying to manage costs instead of investing in growth. Clark's refusal to sign was a signal that she knows the business better than the people running it. Let's dig deeper into the jealousy aspect because it plays a massive role in why this suspension feels so personal. Since the moment Clark was drafted, there has been a weird energy from the league's old guard. We heard legends like Cheryl Swoops make factually incorrect statements to downplay Clark's college records. We saw players on the court target her with physical play that went far beyond normal basketball aggression. The "you can't sit with us" energy was palpable. The commissioner's job is to bridge that gap to market the new stars while honoring the legends. Instead, by allegedly suspending Clark, Angelbert is effectively taking the side of the haters. She is validating the idea that Clark needs to pay her dues or wait her turn. But in the entertainment business, and sports is entertainment, you don't tell your headliner to wait in the back of the line. You put their name on the marquee. This suspension validates every conspiracy theory that the WNBA creates its own glass ceiling. There is also the NBA factor to consider. The NBA owns a massive chunk of the WNBA and has subsidized the league for decades to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, knows a good product when he sees one. He has been supportive of Clark, realizing that she is the key to finally making the WNBA self-sufficient. You have to wonder what is happening on the back channels right now. Is Adam Silver picking up the phone and asking Angelbert what on earth she is doing? The NBA wants the WNBA to be profitable so they can stop writing checks to cover the losses. A suspension of the league's only profitable asset goes directly against the interests of the NBA. If this standoff drags on, we